All right, welcome to the post-event panel discussion for the Client Success Customer Support or Executive Brain Trust. This is December. We're at the closeout of 2023, and we just had an amazing Brain Trust event. Ed Bennick has had a lot of executive experience delivering Mythic service with his support teams globally with brands that you know, like Microsoft, Cvent, Monster, and many others. And he came in and presented to us in a lightning talk about implementing Mythic service in your support success teams. We covered a lot of ground. After that, we went into breakout rooms and we discussed the logistics of doing this, challenges of doing this, Amazon versus Zappos, and we're going to unpack a little bit of that today. But before we get into that discussion, I'd like to turn the time over to Ed just to summarize what he went over today in his lightning talk. So with that, Ed, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, today we talked about the concept of mythic service, which is really providing service beyond what most people could imagine. And I went through probably half a dozen stories where folks took it upon themselves, independent of management, to make a fundamental difference in people's lives. I mean, life-changing things like growing, in terms of improving the family dynamic, or getting someone promoted. And really the takeaway was there really are no boundaries, and that while people don't generally join service organizations to fundamentally change people's lives, it happens, and they can make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you, Ed, for that summary. And if you weren't here for the meeting, you missed a lot of really great stories. So now what I'd like to do is just open it up. We've got the general topic here, but we also now have our panelist discussion. And when we went into breakout rooms, we discussed, all right, what is it like pulling this off on an organizational level? How do you do it? What are some best practices? Why haven't you done it yet? Et cetera. So I'd like to open it up to anyone's comments about maybe summarizing your discussion in your breakout rooms and some of your key takeaways. With that, I'll go over to Mike to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Ed, for the summary. I think, we discussed a number of things in terms of opportunities and constraints. And I think one item we discussed was really, how do you get the whole organization behind this? Because my experience is that you can have people in support that are working long hours because they're on the front line really supporting the customer, but they probably need help from developers who probably don't work weekends. They probably need help from HR people, to get people bonus pay, that type of thing. And often that could be the constraint, I think, because those groups may not have the same sense of urgency and are not quite as customer facing as a support organization. So I'd be interested, Ed, to get your perspective on that in terms of your experience, and maybe the rest of the group, about how you've gone about addressing that issue if you come across it.
Yeah, you have to. I think that the first thing is that you have to, at the executive level, you have to come to agreement on how you're going to, your cross-functional processes and what the commitments are going to be, and essentially have to do a RACI. But I think that also one of the things that I've done at several companies is to actually have developers sidejack with our support people. It fundamentally changes how they think about urgency as well as the product. I think that we always had Mythic Service Awards. So when the people who won these, I think we gave $250 to them. Anytime something, every quarter we would have a Mythic Service Award. And I think that getting executive alignment is kind of step one, which is how are we going to handle our customers collectively, not just if you're the customer facing person. And I would tell you at CoreCentric, we would have product management on with us all the time, both for and developer resources if it's a support issue, or if it's a customer success, the product managers. I think you just have to get buy-in from everyone and understand that, this is a team sport. Okay. We just happen to have a point person for it, which is support or customer success or professional services project manager.
Thank you, Ed. Jason, over to you.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to comment on, it's hard not to love the stories like you gave, Ed, about this Mythic service, and in theory, I would love for all of my teams to do this all the time. It's just, especially with a larger company, how do you think about scaling that, and how do you measure the impact? Because I think anecdotally it makes sense, absolutely, create these amazing experiences, but they're very individual experiences. How do you go above and beyond in a way that's scalable? And also, on that same note, if you're asking people to do this, how do you not reach a point of burnout where people feel the expectation to work all weekend or overnight to create this amazing experience? And how are they rewarded? It's like, well, maybe one person a quarter gets a $250 award. I mean, that's not sustainable, I think. But I love the spirit of it. And what I was thinking about in our breakout was the kind of comparing Amazon to Zappos. You sort of have a very tech focused scaled support versus white glove support. And on one side, you're focused on how do we reduce the need for customers to even contact us? And if they do, how do we make that super easy? And then Zappos is more about building that connection, and whatever they need, how do you really build a connection, make them feel that you're on the same page, and you build that loyalty. And I wonder if, again, it varies kind of depending on the company size, but especially in the age of AI that we're in right now, how do we maybe leverage AI to handle a lot of the kind of easier issues that take up a lot of time, and empower agents to provide this Mythic service now that they have more time, because AI is helping with a lot of the transactional type stuff? And how do we use that information to pull out stories where there is more urgency and this is impacting a customer's life, and you have the ability to jump in and provide that Mythic service?
Yeah, exceptions are by definition exceptional, and so you want to have the flexibility to handle extreme exceptions. This came up in our breakout, and as I said before we started recording, is your parameters are business critical, customer critical, and compliance critical. So you're setting some boundaries there. But beyond that, you want to give people discretion, and you should know your business well enough to what are the exceptions that are going to be allowed, and what's not going to be allowed. In terms of we big believer in quality assurance coaching, and one of the sections there is what could you have done to get a higher score, and probe on the next issue. Or if someone's working on launching an event, that the next question that is going to be likely about discounting or whatever. We encourage people to solve the next problem sooner rather than later, and not wait for another call. And I think that in terms of burnout, I mean, we're not mandating anything. I understand you're saying that you're setting expectations, but again, we leave it up to individuals' discretion, because they are so exceptional. In terms of level of service, what I've learned is different clienteles have different behaviors. So when at Acronis, our clientele were IT people, and IT people will self-serve and will scour the internet for a week before they pick up the phone for support. At Cvent, marketing was our clientele, and they had us on speed dial. And so at Acronis, we had user groups. IT people love being involved in user groups. They think it's kind of their job to help each other, and they're very proud of it. And marketers, event planners, that no interest. There's a sense of urgency. It's one of the 5 most stressful jobs almost every year, and so you just have to understand your clientele and what their behaviors are. You can that you have to understand how much friction you can put in the system. With consumers, generally, you're gonna have the most friction. B2B, you gotta understand your clients and what their expectations are and what their behaviors are. It's how I've served across the different companies has been different because they're different customers.
Excellent. Thank you. Kinsey, over to you.
Yeah, just coming off mute. How do you think this, I don't know, I'll call it a philosophy for now. I mean, I love it, but I feel like it's a little more appropriate for a B2C motion and a little more difficult to crack the code on for a B2B type of enterprise place. I'd love to get your feedback there on that.
Only one of the examples I gave you was B2C, and that was the Barney one. There were all the rest, including some others that I didn't include, were all B2B. So I think it plays both places, but I just have more experience on B2B. And frankly, if for our consumers at Acronis, their average price was it was a $50 product for the basic one, and the average price, our e-marketing department just discounted the heck out of it, and our average sale price was $23. So you've got to understand that you shouldn't be losing money on support. So you can have temper it, and that's, again, we're gonna put more friction in the system.
Excellent. This is great. Some great thoughts. I love, Ed, your point on exceptional services exceptional. So you're really not putting a cap necessarily, and correct me where I'm wrong here, but what I took away from that is that you're giving your employees permission when it suits to go above and beyond and become legendary. And legendary doesn't happen every day. But there are these being aware of these opportunities to use your skill, or you have a relationship with a customer and you just want to see them be successful. Giving people permission to rise up and have an impact on that customer is kind of what my takeaway was. In terms of scalable, to your point, Jason, I don't know that it's really scalable. I don't know that Ed, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I don't know that it's ever scalable, right? Like that's kind of the idea behind Mythic, is that you're doing these unscalable things maybe infrequently, but you're giving people permission to do it every once in a while.
Yeah, let me share. So when I was at the phone company, I was interviewing for an engineering position, and my boss, ultimately my boss, asked, would you rather work inside the box or outside the box? And I said, inside the box. And he said, I said, I know that's the wrong answer, but let me explain why, which is when you live, when there are no boundaries, okay, and this is probably the opposite of it's like the invisible collar for a dog. He gets zapped, but he doesn't know where the boundaries are. Okay, so he stays very cautious. Whereas generally, the box that you're afforded is pretty generous, and you can go all the way to the edge. And so, my belief is when there are no boundaries and you don't know where the boundaries are, you tend to you tend to be more conservative. What I wanted to do is crack it and say there aren't any boundaries. You're not going to run into the electric fence, and so that's what it meant. That's what I want people to think, is you're not going to run into the electric fence.
Excellent. Any last thoughts, points, questions? Okay, I want to thank Y Meadows for putting together our CS Brain Trust. And then, of course, Ed, for joining us here today, and all of you for your thoughts, your contributions around this topic. We'll see you all in the new year.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ed.